Welcome back. All right, so we're going to talk about the San Jose Sharks. And yes, this means that alphabetically I have San Jose ahead of St. Louis. Depends. S-A-I-N-T, Saint, or S-T period, Saint. So, yes, the NHL goes alphabetically with San Jose first. So do I. So, that's fine. Which means tomorrow is Seattle and St. Louis. All right, San Jose, it got pretty ugly last year, didn't it? And it feels like the team tried to make changes on the fly. The goaltending is completely changed from last year. And yet, I don't think that this is a team that contends for a cup this year. Not only that, but I don't think they'd be all that upset if they won say, draft lottery and picked themselves up a future franchise player at number one overall. It feels like that's where San Jose needs to go, even though publicly Doug Wilson says no. We see ourselves in the playoffs. We think we can get back to the playoffs. And guys like Carlson, Burns, and others will say, no, we don't want to go through a rebuild. But here we are. It looks like a team that's gone into a rebuild. It's weird because in the NHL you'll have teams that go into a rebuild and they tear everything down and they get draft picks and they get all these guys. And then you have teams that just, even though they're down, they refuse to admit they're down. And they refuse to admit they need to make major changes and they need to look to get future assets. So we'll see how things go for San Jose this coming season. The numbers, not great across the board. Their power play at 14.1% last year, 29th. When you've got Carlson and you've got Burns, you need that number to be better, right? Penalty kill, 80.4%, which was 14th, right around the middle of the road. It's not that long ago. San Jose had an amazing penalty kill. Absolutely ridiculously good penalty kill. Goals for, 146. That is 25th in the NHL last season. And they were 30th in goals against at 196. But as much as people will point out, hey, it's Jones, Martin Jones didn't play particularly well over the last couple of years. However, the team in front of him wasn't very good at keeping the puck away from the net either. So there was a lot of blame to go around in San Jose. Now, when you look at their drafting record, it's not bad, but they suffer from some of what the team I just finished a preview for, which is Pittsburgh. Same idea of they've traded draft picks, and there's been plenty of drafts where maybe they have 5 picks, right? 4 picks kind of thing. And eventually that does catch up with you. So they drafted 9th in 2015, and they get Timo Meier, and they got Rudolph Balcers 142. He would go to Ottawa, then he would come back, and he's been better since he came back. 2016, Dylan Gambrell's drafted 60th overall. Noah Gregor was drafted 111, and Blichfeld drafted 210th that year, and there's an outside chance he cracks their opening night roster this year. 2017, they draft Josh Norris 19th overall. Of course, they traded Josh Norris's rights. And Ferraro is drafted at 49th that year. Let me just go quickly here and fix that. Surprised there aren't more misspellings with how quickly I try to get all this up here. Ryan Merkley was drafted 21st overall in 2018. They draft John Leonard at 182nd in 2018. 2019, they had 5 picks, their first one at 48, none of them in the NHL at this point. 2020, they drafted Weisblatt at 31 and Bordelot at 38. And both of them could end up being NHL players. 2021, they drafted Eckland at number 7. And Eckland's a fascinating pick in that he has all of the offensive potential in the world. He may end up on their opening night roster as well. And they had 9 picks this year. And it is a signal that things have changed. 5 picks in 2019, 9 picks in 2021. They are putting more into the future. They are no longer trading their first round draft picks. This is a team that's not admitting that they're in a rebuild, but they're not denying that they need to get those future assets either. Now exits, Sorensen's gone. At this point, still a UFA. We'll see whether or not he lands anywhere else in the NHL or if he plays in Europe. Jones and Kozanosh, both goaltenders are out. Donato, still UFA. Yarosh traded out. True was picked up by the Seattle Kraken. And Curtis Gabriel was picked up by Toronto Maple Leafs. Their new faces, Lane Peterson, joins the team from Arizona. Cogliano comes over. Nick Merkley acquired. And he and Ryan Merkley are not related. So I kind of picture Doug Wilson going, hey, look, I got your brother. Not related. That's kind of how I picture it. And Bonino, of course, brought in as well. So we'll see how all of this comes together for San Jose. Now, their last 3 years tell you that they fell off a cliff. 46, 27, and 9 was the record in 2018, 2019. Second in the Pacific. They go all the way to the conference finals. and they lost to the St. Louis Blues. 2019-2020, they finished 29-36-5. They were 8th in the Pacific, no playoffs. And there was a lot of comments about, okay, well, there were injury problems, and once everybody's healthy, things will get better. However, this year they finished 21-28-7, and they were 7th in the West. So it didn't get better. And so for San Jose, I think there's probably going to be more pain before things really turn around for them. Look at their forward group. There are a lot of players in their forward group. Just saying, there are a lot of players here. Meyer, Couture, LeBanc, Barabanov, Hurdle, Kane, Balsers, Bonino, Leonard, Cogliano, Gambrell, and Nieto. That's probably your top 12. And yet, explosive, high-scoring centers and forwards, it's not really there. Like, Couture still has that capability, sure. Meyer could bounce back and get to 30 goals, and then you get into some unknowns. Can Hurdle stay healthy? Evander Kane, with everything that's gone on in the offseason, is he going to be able to just focus on the hockey like he did last year? Or eventually are all of the off-ice things going to start to affect the on-ice player? Which does happen in the NHL. Nick Merkley, Peterson, Gregor, Shellman, Viel, Blickfeld, Himilevsky, Chekovich, and Dahlin. Dahlin was actually protected in the expansion draft, I believe. So that would tell me that Jonathan Dahlin should be getting a chance at a spot or maybe trade or something. On the blue line, Mario Ferraro, who, yes, has been underrated for San Jose. Burns, Knizhov. I like Knizhov. Not an offensively gifted defenseman, but I like his effort. Carlson, Shimmick, Vlasic, and people point out, rightfully so, the amount of money being spent on Burns, Carlson, and Vlasic, comparatively speaking, with the return they're getting on those players at this point. Pat Pasichnik, Megna, Milosh, Middleton, and Ryan Merkley. Again, there's a lot of names. I don't know if you can come up with 12 forwards and 6 defensemen out of this that you can look at and say, that should be a team that gets into the playoffs. In net, they've got Hill and Reimer. Interestingly enough, Adin Hill's never been a starter in the NHL. Reimer has not been counted on to be a starter in a very long time. I would expect this to be a 1A, 1B situation. Whichever goalie's playing better gets the start. And Melnachuk, who did play towards the end of the year, maybe they let go of Kozanosh because Melnachuk, they feel, has a higher ceiling, or they liked Hill, so they were willing to sacrifice Kozanosh off to Arizona in order to pick up Adin Hill. But whatever happens, I do like Hill. I would love to see him excel, and I'd like to see San Jose surprise some people and prove some people wrong, including myself. Prospects, William Eckland. Again, that explosive talent level may force him into this conversation sooner rather than later, because in terms of that top-end talent, it's just not quite where you want it to be if you're San Jose, and you really do have visions of making the playoffs this season. Ozzy Weisblatt, Thomas Bordeleau as well. Forwards who probably aren't in the lineup this year, but the Sharks have visions of them being in the lineup soon enough. Their Stanley Cup odds are at 66-1. Those are pretty long odds. And they're long odds for a reason. This is a team that, of course, hasn't won a Stanley Cup, and the discussion can be had about whether or not San Jose is a team that's had some of the most talented teams that have never won a Stanley Cup, but they don't have that cup victory. And I personally have them 7th in the Pacific. I acknowledge the Pacific is a rather weak division in comparison with others, but I still think San Jose has more building to do. And I start to wonder, so is this a case where Doug Wilson publicly says, you know, we're doing what we can, and yet you look and the new faces are like Cogliano, Bonino, everything's basically very similar. You've got Hill and Reimer are new faces in net. So is the plan to sort of coast along, and then when they miss the playoffs go, whoops, and we won the draft lottery? Or you know, we got a top 3 pick. This year's draft upcoming, the 2022 draft, is supposed to be very deep, very talented. So San Jose might be in a position at the deadline to trade guys out and look for first-round draft picks next year. Again, I don't think they'll commit fully to going through a rebuild because they have veterans on the team that wouldn't be too happy about it. Think about like last year when Chicago kind of went, well, we're not sure. And some of the veterans in Chicago said, wait, we're not going through a rebuild, are we? Because we don't want to go through a rebuild. And players will always have that belief in themselves that they can turn things around. If they don't, they usually won't last with the team because it'll probably show on the ice. So, yeah, I mean, for San Jose, Could they surprise us? Yes. Do I think they do? Not really, because I think they need to go through the pain of it. I think if this team claws together a playoff run, if they just get a wild card spot and lose out in the first round, I think that could do more long-term damage than if they just don't make the playoffs this year and get a top 5 or top 6 pick in a pretty deep draft. They have to be thinking about the future. And that's where it gets awkward for the players that are on the team in the present, right? So their October schedule, it's not easy. On the 16th, they play at home against Winnipeg. So opening night's on the 12th. They don't play till the 16th. Then on the 19th, they're in Montreal. They're in Ottawa on the 21st, and they're in Toronto on the 22nd. So that's a three Canadian team swing right there. Then they go to Boston on the 24th, Nashville on the 26th. So that's a 5-game road trip right there. Then they come home, and on the 28th, they play Montreal. So both of their games against Montreal are played in October, and then they play at home against Winnipeg on the 30th. And that's their second game against Winnipeg, and that's their second home game against Winnipeg, which means it's the last time you get a chance to see Winnipeg if you're in San Jose as of October 30th. So there's no back-to-backs other than the 21st and 22nd, but it feels like a more brutal schedule than some of the other ones I've taken a look at. And we'll see how things go for the San Jose Sharks this year. Let me know your thoughts. Can San Jose scrape together a playoff team? And can they overachieve? And as I stated in this, would that be maybe a worst case scenario for the future of the team, or is it just fine? They'll figure it out. They'll come up with some more steals in later rounds of the draft, or they'll find a pretty good player late in the first. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. As always, don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happen upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.